is ready. Ready on the right, ready on the left.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Saved Rounds. We're here, episode 19, and today I'm with Leanna Vargas, who is one of the interns here at The Anchor, and so we're just doing something a little different today. We are interviewing people. There's going to be some other interviews coming up from the interns, plus in the coming months, we're going to have Fernando Borboa from Front Sight and Octavio Sanchez for Front Sight. So you will probably see in the coming time forward, even to next year, maybe interviewing some more people. As always, we do want to answer your questions. Today, there won't be any questions, but when we have those moments, always send your questions into TheAnchorOceanside at gmail.com. You can write them on our social medias, or you can text them to me, and I will read them directly. So, with no further ado, here's Leanna. Now, the first question I got for you, Leanna, is how did you come to follow Jesus, and what's the story?
So my story is going back to where I grew up. I grew up in Whittier, California, which is Los Angeles County. I did grow up with two other siblings. I have a younger and an older brother. And you know, my parents, we grew up in a household where my parents were strict, but they really pushed hard work and education on us. And they tried to put a foundation, I guess you could say, of religion for us so that we can make the decision later on down the road of what we want to decide to follow. So the majority of me growing up from kindergarten to 8th grade, I went to a parochial school or a Catholic school, a private one. And I remember as I was attending school, I always knew that God was real, but I didn't have a relationship with him. That was the thing. And I remember I silently questioned my faith. And what I mean by silently question is when you grow up in a Hispanic household or, you know, Mexican family or whatnot, you don't verbally question your religion because we grew up Catholic. So I remember at times of, you know, going to church, which we would go 3 times a week while we were there attending school. And I always often wondered why I had to go directly to a priest to talk to the Lord. You know, how did a priest know how many times I had to say, how many Hail Marys I had to say or Our Fathers for me to be absolved of my sins? So I had all these questions, but again, I never questioned. I just did it silently. And as I was growing up, a few years later, my parents ended up divorcing when I was around 9, 10 years old. And you know, being adolescent and young, you always think that you know everything. So I really didn't have a good relationship with my mom at the time. And I made the decision to live with my dad as I got into high school. So I lived with my dad all through my high school years.
Where did your dad live?
He lived in Whittier.
In Whittier as well?
Yeah, right near where I grew up.
So your parents had separated?
Yes.
How old were they when they separated? Or how old, I should say, how old were you?
I was around 9, close to 10 when this happened. So I remember when I went to live with my dad when I was a freshman, he had told me, you know, Mija, look into what high school you want to go to, you know, see if you can get into it. I'll pay the tuition if I can. And I remember I still wanted to continue going somewhere where I can continue my faith, where I can grow in the Lord. And I ended up choosing Bishop Ahmad up in La Puente, and it's a Christian high school. And I was really into athletics also all through elementary school, so I really wanted to continue that athleticism. And I remember going to that school, and it just felt like the Lord's presence was there. It was a community where everybody loved on each other. Nobody sat by themselves. If they saw somebody at lunch sitting by themselves, they would go sit with you. And I just thought, wow, what a really great high school and great friends that I had. My junior year, though, I started really getting serious about what I wanted to do when I graduated. And I remember I always had the desire to want to serve in the military. My grandfather had served in the Army during World War II. He was a paratrooper. And I remember growing up, he would never talk about the war. And every day he would sit with me, you know, where I originally grew up, we had a garage, and he would sit in there, and every day he would sit with me and say, how's your day going? How are things going in school? And I remember I always used to ask him, like, Grandpa, what happened during the war? You know, did you hurt anybody? And he would never talk about it. Even my grandmother told me that when he came back, he never spoke about what happened. He put everything in a box and he put everything away, and he picked up as a dad where he left off.
Wow.
And so I always, you know, saw that loving kindness in him, but also somebody that was very stern in his character. So as I got on my junior year, I thought, you know, what am I going to do? I really want to serve in the military. And one of my friends at the time was like, hey, I want to go in the Army.
Okay.
And so I said, hey, let's do it. Let's do the buddy program. And so when she went to the recruiter, she ended up getting disqualified because she had a pre-existing medical condition. So I was like, okay, I guess it's just me now. So I remember was going to go down to see the Army, and then I contacted them, and they're like, oh yeah, come down here, come to the recruiting station. So I went down to the nearest recruiting station. Keep in mind, my dad didn't know about this. I went on my own after school one day. And
So are you, how old at this time?
at this time, I'm a junior in high school.
So 17?
Around 17.
Okay.
And I went, and I remember I walked in, and the Army, nobody was there. And then I was like, you know what? Let's see if the Marine Corps is there. Because I always thought the Marine Corps was really cool. You know, they're first to go in, first to fight. And so I went down to the hallway where the Marine Corps was, and I was like, wow, they're not there either. And I also forgot to mention I did call the Air Force a couple of days prior, but they never called me back. So I was like, wow, what is going on? So I remember heading back down this hallway, and there's a sailor standing outside with his arms crossed, you know, kind of leaning on the doorway, and a little smirk on his face. And he's like, let me guess. He goes, the Army wasn't there and the Marine Corps wasn't there. And I said, yeah. And he's like, the Air Force never called you back. And I was like, maybe. He's like, how about you give me a couple minutes of your time? So I said, all right, cool, whatever. I went in there, and he got to know my interests were, what I wanted to do. And at the end of the day, I ended up taking the pre-ASVAB. And he's like, hey, you scored high enough. So what job do you want to do? And I said, you know, I really want to do intel. I like studying people. I like studying, you know, cultures, where people come from. I'm really into that. And so he said, all right, I'm gonna see what I can do for you. Keep in mind, this was around May, June of 2001. So this is about a couple months before like 9/11 had happened. And I remember, you know, he's like, I'll talk to your dad for you, and, you know, we'll see what we can do. So I remember one night I decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to talk to my dad on my own. I'm going to sit him down and say, I said, hey, Dad, you know what? Let's sit down, let's talk, because I'm about to graduate in a year. I don't have the best grades, you know, so I can't get into a good university. We don't have money for college. So at this point, it's either going to community college or I really want to go in the service. And I remember he gave me this look of not disappointment, but this look like, I'm growing up and it's time to like, let me go. Like he knew. And so he was like, look, Mija, if I do this, you can't give up on this. You have to do it and finish it through. And so I said, okay, let's do it. And so I ended up going into the delayed entry program, July of 2001. And then I remember, you know, a couple months later, 9/11 happened. And it was the reality of the situation. I was like, all right, you know, we're going to war. At the same token, though, I had two cousins who actually came in a couple months before me who became corpsmen as well.
Okay.
And so I ended up in the delayed entry program for a year, and then I came into boot camp July of 2002, July 16th. And so it was interesting going through boot camp during a time of war. That obviously was the main focus, was to get you prepared and out there to fight. And then as I got through boot camp, I ended up going into my basic corpsman school.
When do you arrive at boot camp again?
July of 2002.
And that's 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, it's about like 2.5 months that you're there.
2.5 months,
Yeah.
okay.
So I ended up graduating from boot camp, and then I went to my basic corpsman school about February of 2003. And that was another few months that I did that. And then, so you got to understand that boot camp is there in Great Lakes. And then we just went across street to my corpsman school.
Oh, they had the corpsman school there.
Right across street. And then it's on the naval training side. So we went there. And then I remember it was a couple weeks before I was going to graduate, and they give you an option to do your top 3 that you want to go, your wish list. And I was like, man, I really want to go with the Marines, you know? And so I remember I put, you know, Hawaii as my first choice. And then I put like Italy second, and third one was Great Lakes, because I didn't know. And then I remember we were getting our orders, and then I had opened them up, and I was like, oh no. And then my friend was sitting next to me, and she's like, what's wrong? I said, I got Great Lakes. I literally went from boot camp cross street to down the street. So I was there for a few years.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I did forget to mention, though, that the way I became a corpsman was not something I picked. My recruiter actually picked it. So when I went to MEPS before I got in the delayed entry program, he had met with me and said, hey, I got you the job that you want. And I was like, great, I'm going to be intel. And he's like, better, I'm going to be a corpsman. And I said, what is a corpsman? In very, you know, rated G terms. I said, what's a corpsman? And he's like, no, you're going to love it. You're going to go with the Marines. You love biology. You'll do great at it. And believe me, if you don't like it in 2 years, you can go ahead and do something else. And I was like, oh, okay. And so, yeah, that's how he ended up picking my job for me. And so that's what happened. So I ended up graduating, going back. I ended up graduating core school, and then going down to Great Lakes for a few years. And At the time, I was still not having my relationship right with the Lord. I was doing a lot of partying while I was in, a lot of drinking while I was in. And then I finally just said, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I really want to deploy. I want to go. I felt like this is what I should be doing. And I cut my orders early from Great Lakes. I talked to my my detailer, which is like your guys' monitor equivalency. And I said, hey, what can I do to go? And he said, well, we just opened it up for females to go to FMSS, or which is Field Medical Service School. And he's like, but you have to leave within like 2 weeks. And I said, let's do it. So I cut my orders early. I wasn't even there for about 1.5 years. And I ended up leaving to go to FMSS, which is now Field Medical Training Battalion.
Is that here at Pendleton?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I went, and then this was around February of 2005, I believe it was. And so I ended up going there for about a month. And then they had asked me, the detailer was like, where do you want to go after if you were to complete? And I said, I want to go to Hawaii. It's still a goal of mine to go to Hawaii. And I ended up getting orders. I graduated and got orders to Hawaii, and I came with Combat Service Support Group 3 at Kainoi Bay. Oddly enough, that's where you were.
Yep.
Yes. So we could have crossed paths and not even known it.
What year did you show up, Hawaii?
I showed up there. Let me check. I was there from, I want to say, July of 2005 to May 2008.
July 2005 to May 2008.
Yes.
Okay, and I showed up in K-Bay June 04, and I left in September of 07.
Oh, very.
Yeah.
So like, literally could have crossed paths.
I could have walked right past you, because that base is tiny.
It is.
Yeah, and that's where Jesus and Maria are right now.
Very nice.
That base is so tiny, you walk past people and you would never know.
It is. So that's very interesting. So while I was there, I was never, and you know this, while I was there on the island, you're never there.
Right.
I mean, you'll go to like CAX, you'll go to 29 Palms, you'll go to Kona, the big island, to train. So I think out of the 3 years I had orders there, it was less than a year that I was actually on island, because I was always gone training. And I remember while I was there, I really wanted to deploy. And one of my good friends at the time, she said, hey, she understood that how badly I wanted to go. And so she gave me her deployment. And I ended up going individual augmentee with the unit out of Okinawa, CLB-5. And we went to Iraq. And so we were there from August 2007 to March of 2008. And
that's Iraq.
Mm-hmm. And so then I came back on the island, and keeping in mind that, we did see some traumatic things out there. So, going through that, I guess you can say once you come back and realizing, some of the things that you were coming back to as far as like the anger and the depression. So, I remember the provider telling me that when I went to go see him, I said, I don't know what's going on, because I'm just really angry all the time. I'm sad, like I'm going through all these emotions. And he's like, you have post-traumatic stress from being out there. And you're kind of like, oh, well, I don't think so, because, you're not really able to decompress. And so I came back, and I remember I was up for orders again at this time. And so I wanted to extend, but they were unable to do it. So they ended up giving me orders to Marine Corps Station Miramar. And so I checked into Miramar in July of 2008. And I remember when I checked in there's a department that you check into at the Naval Hospital. It's called POMI. It's a Plan and Operational Management Department. Basically, they're the corpsmen. The only job that they do is they assign you deployments. And I remember I checked in there, and he's like, oh, you're FMF, you're HM2. You know what? Don't even pack your stuff. You're going to go out again. And I was like, what? And so I didn't really think anything of it. But sure enough, a few months later, I get an email saying, you're going to be I-8 again to Afghanistan this time, but with 2nd Med Battalion out of Camp Lejeune. And so I was like, great.
Where'd you go now just to backtrack a little bit, when you went to Iraq, where did you go in Iraq?
I was in Al-Assad.
Al-Assad? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then is that where your main medical base was? Mm-hmm. Did you go out to any of the cities like Haklania,
No,
Haditha?
not really, no.
Okay.
We did, but sparingly.
Did you ever go out to the dam? Haditha Dam?
No.
Okay, so just Al-Assad.
Mm-hmm. Our main area was there.
Okay.
So we went on like convoys and stuff like that, but it wasn't like that often.
And then when you went to Afghanistan, where were you out of?
We were on Camp Dwyer.
Where was that located?
I don't know.
Because the only places I remember when I went to Afghanistan was Bagram Air Base. Everybody came in there. Mm-hmm. And then we went out to Jalalabad. And then from Jalalabad, where I was with 2-3 was the Tantil, the Chake Valley area. But beyond that, I didn't. There was a couple of places I went. But is Camp Dwyer in the north or the south?
I don't know. Is it? I mean, Joseph, you were there. I don't know.
Joseph's our producer.
I'm
Does he know?
sorry. I don't know where exactly.
He's looking it up right now.
I'm sorry.
Like a real producer should.
Thank you.
As Joseph looks it up, we'll continue.
Okay, so I ended up...
Eventually, what we're going to have to do here is have a mic for him so they could just hear him.
I think that would be nice because then he could give his input.
Yep.
So I went to have, during that time when I got pulled to go with 2nd Med Battalion, it was a couple weeks before we were going to deploy. And then I get this email saying, hey, we no longer need you. Now, keep in mind, everything is in storage. I don't have an apartment. I don't have a car. I'm traveling between my mom's house and, going to work on base. So it's about an hour out. And I was like, what am I going to do? They didn't need me anymore. All they wanted were actual technicians, surgical techs and all that at the time. And so I remember I went to an admiral's call during that week that I got notification I wasn't going to go. And the admiral would hold a call, I think it was on monthly or quarterly basis, where all the sailors would go at the Naval Hospital and you get to ask your questions to the admiral directly and the command master chief. And I remember I sat in there and I had this feeling like I should ask my question. And I raised my hand. And I remember I was talking to the command master chief at the time. And I said, look, Master Chief, I don't know if there's a program or something that we can do for the sailors where they can get compensated or assistance for those that are cut the last minute from their deployment. I said, because, my whole life's in storage right now. I was supposed to go on a deployment, but now I'm not. And I really don't know what to do at this point. And the command master chief wasn't even a corpsman. She was a hull tech in HT. And she worked on ships, but she knew more about our rating than what we knew as corpsmen, which I thought was pretty cool. And she said, you know what? She's like, HM2, come talk to me afterwards. And then she asked the audience, how many of you have been cut short from your orders when you're supposed to deploy? And you should have seen the sea of hands that were raised. And she's like, I am so sorry. And so I remember, I didn't think the master chief was going to wait for me afterwards. So I'm walking out and she's like, H2, come here. She's like, I'm sorry that happened to you. She's like, what can I do to help you? And I said, look, I don't want, favoritism or anything. I just want to go on deployment. That's it. I'm ready to go mentally and she's like, all right, well, pick wherever you want to go. I said, again, I don't want favoritism. I just want to go to Afghanistan. And so she's like, all right. And then she walked off. A couple hours later, I get an email. You're going to Afghanistan, 1st Medical Battalion Office Surgical. And I was like, so now I'm going to leave in another couple weeks. And I ended up deploying with them from November 2009 to May 2010. And that was
this is your 3rd deployment?
This is my 2nd deployment.
2nd deployment,
yeah.
Okay.
So this is it was the one that really hit me hard. We were in Camp Dwyer, and then I spent a little bit of time, a couple months in Cop Payne. And it was difficult because of the environment we were in, but also to the patients that we saw, the service members, their traumatic injuries that they were sustaining out there. Unfortunately, we lost a lot of them while we were out there. And I just think it was, the nonstop of seeing service members getting injured, of taking care of the locals. And it was very impressionable while I was out there, and just some things that you never thought you'd experience being out, in country like that. So when I came back from that deployment, it really impacted me hard. I wasn't the same. I was very angry. I was having a lot of nightmares. I just wasn't there mentally.
Okay.
And I remember when I came back from the deployment to the clinic, I remember my LPO at the time, my supervisor said, hey, you know what? Because they had put me back in patient care into an urgent care setting. So you're coming back from being nonstop deployment to now being nonstop patients in urgent care. And they had me as a supervisor. And I remember one day I just broke down. I couldn't do it. And so they said, you know what? We just don't think you're well. You haven't had time to decompress. So we're going to give you another job. And unfortunately, it's hard on you when you're a corpsman and you get taken out of your element because your bread and butter is seeing patients. So when you're now saying, hey, we don't have that confidence in you because of what you're going through, they put me in the back of a clinic to do admin. So I did, admin for a little bit. And I remember, I can't do this. I don't want to be here. And I remember I went to go talk to my senior chief at the time. And I said, Senior, I need you to help me. I don't want to be here. I want to go back out and deploy. And he's like, you're not well. And he goes, I know that feeling when you get back, you have that adrenaline and you want to keep going back out. But he's like, you need to focus on yourself. And I said, I don't. And so he's like, well, let me see what I can do. So a couple months later, comes out to me and says, hey, I got you on another deployment. I said, great, I'm going back to Afghanistan. He said, no, you're going on a MEU. I said, what's a MEU? And so he's like, oh, you're going to love it. Don't worry. You're going to go on a ship. You're going to see all these great countries. So I ended up going on IA again, the third time. This is my third deployment now with CLB 15. We deployed, I was on LSD 47 USS Rushmore. So I deployed from September 2012 to May 2013. And oddly enough, I ended up going back to the Middle East. Our little tugboat went back.
Okay.
And so we went to Oman, Syria, United Arab Emirates. We went to East Timor-Leste, so Kuwait and all that. And
so for the second deployment, turns out Camp Dory's in Hemland Province. So I kind of know where it is now.
Yeah.
So now you're back on your third, you're on the MEU, and you end up in the Middle East, and now it's 2012, 2013 time frame. Okay.
Yeah, so we went on the MEU and then we went back to the Middle East. And I remember during that time, about a few months before I was supposed to come back, I was like, I don't want to stay in. I don't feel like this is, where I'm being called to. And while I was on board ship, I remember, attending services and just, questioning like, Lord, what am I doing? Like, still trying to figure out that relationship. Again, I wasn't right with the Lord. I would attend service thinking that, it was a check mark in a box. It would cover me. But I still just wasn't living for him. I was doing my own thing. And I remember a couple months before I got out, I said, I don't know what to do. And I said, but I don't want to do this. And I said, Lord, if this is from you, please open the doors up. And I remember, you know what? I want to go somewhere where I can grow in the Lord. I want to go to a good college. I just don't know what to do. And I remember my friend at the time, he had attended San Diego Christian College. And he said, hey, why don't you try it out? It's a really, I think it's a good school. Obviously, it has its,
all schools.
Yeah, it's issues. But he's like, it's a good community because I made good friends there. And I said, oh, okay, I'll check it out. So I checked it out, was on deployment, and I was like, oh, okay. So I just put in my application and I'm getting accepted. And then I said, you know what? I just felt at peace. Like
this is 2013 still?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is probably like around, I want to say February timeframe.
So this is about the same time I'm starting there.
And so I was like, oh, okay. And so I got accepted. And then I just was at peace with the decision to get out. And I remember, my H1 at the time had asked me, he's like, you want to re-enlist? Are you ready for this? And I said, no, I think I'm just going to separate on my EIS. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go to college. And I just really want to focus on the Lord and myself. And so he was like, that's a really dumb decision.
Did he really say that?
Yeah. He's like, that's the stupidest decision. He goes, you're just going to fail. And I was like, okay.
And what rank was this dude?
He was an H1.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember
you're going to fail.
I remember when I heard that, it was solidifying my decision, and I remember when we got back in May, around the first week of May from our deployment, I had less than a couple weeks to check out. And, this is terminal leave, going to TAMPS or TAPS class, doing all that. And I remember I was checking out with MLG at the time in their admin section, and the HM1, she's very sweet. And she said, look, you just picked up HM1. We can rip up this paperwork like this never happened. We can have you just stay in. And I remember thinking, you know what? Because you start questioning. You're like, well, maybe I made the wrong decision.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask something. Okay, so when I was getting out and they were sending us to they changed it from TAPS to something else. When you were going through on the Navy side and the Marine Corps side, they brought this dude in who made everybody feel like they were going to fail out there if they didn't re-enlist. Like your life's just going to go to poop because you're getting out of the Marine Corps. Did they ever do that to you guys?
No. I mean, they did the best that they could, I remember asking them questions about some benefits and they were just like, oh. It was just kind of like getting you through it. And it was like, go ask your command career counselor. And I'm like.
Yeah, that's it. But that was a weird, I know what you're saying because it's really weird. If anyone's gone through that, it's really strange because you're so in like the military and and then you come to this class about becoming a civilian and you're looking around the room and you're just like, what is happening? It's the weirdest thing.
It is. Because you have like a mix of people in there. You have like the younger, Marine sailors getting out, and then you have like the older ones that have been in forever and a day. So I understand. Yeah. But yeah, I remember I was there checking out and she's like, going back, she's like, yeah, we could just, rip the paperwork or whatnot. So I questioned and I said, I don't know. I said, maybe I should stay in. So if I would have stayed in, I would have been up for orders. So I said, let's check the orders list to see what I'd be up for. Because at this time, I was up for shore command, so going to a clinic or a hospital because I was operational. So I said, okay, let's see what's available for a clinic, whatever. And I wanted to go back to Hawaii. I wanted to work at the clinic out there. So I remember we called the monitor or the detailer, you guys, monitor and equivalency. And she's like, look, we have this motivated HM1. She's done several deployments. What can we do to help her rest? Kind of give her a place, her choice. She's done a lot. And I remember that I remember the detailer, he was an H1 too. And I remember he basically said, screw you. And he said that if she's going to stay in, she has one of two options. She can go to Lejeune, or she can go stay there at Pendleton. She's going back operational.
Wow.
And I remember like my heart sank because it felt like the military was turning their back against you for everything that you've done. And so I said, you know what, H1, I'm done. And I remember this look of like sadness on her face. And she said, I'm so sorry, Leanna. And I said, it's fine. It is fine. This is just, the Lord's doing. And let me get out. So I got out and I attended San Diego Christian College in August of 2013.
Okay.
And so where I met you and I met my husband, Joseph, there.
The producer.
Yes. And the Lord is very good. I met a lot of beautiful people while I was there.
How long were you there for?
August 2013, and I graduated in May of 2016.
Did we graduate the same year, me and you?
I think we did.
Joseph was it this Joseph was with us too? Or were you were the year prior?
I was on campus during the day and all that, and he was the APS, the Adult Program Studies, at night. So
because I can't remember. I know Ruben graduated before us, who's one of our board members. And then I can't remember if you graduated a year prior or we all graduated in the same class. I know we took a lot of classes together.
I think we graduated at the same time, didn't we? Because I remember, Joseph, you graduated after us shortly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a very good experience while I was there, obviously, because I got to meet you both. Yep. But also, too, it was during that time that the Lord did speak to me, because while I was attending, people think, oh, you go to a Christian college and there's perfect, Christian kids around. No, these are people who have a lot of problems, a lot of issues that go there. And I was one of them. And I remember I was attending there and I was not doing right. Again, I was
What were you majoring in?
I'm biology.
Biology.
Yeah. My whole thing was I wanted to go pre-med. I wanted to become a physician assistant. And, while I was there going to college, I wasn't doing right. My post-traumatic stress was getting really bad. I fell into alcoholism. I was partying a lot. I was not doing well at all. And I remember one night I came home from partying and I heard this voice, and I know it was the Lord's voice, and he said, get up now. And I remember it was soul fearing, like not a fear that, like it was something that was eternal, like an eternal fear. And I got up and I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done. Like I knew I had to get right with the Lord. And I've heard that twice in my life. And at both times, it was pretty bad. And I was like, okay, all right, Lord, I'm going to turn away from what I'm doing. I'm sorry. I repented. And I remember I found a church out there in Pacific Beach that was attending shortly and, trying to get into the Word, trying to get plugged in. And I was serving a little bit while I was there. But while I was attending San Diego Christian College and I met Joseph through mutual friends, Joseph had introduced me to The Anchor. And so he said, he's like, I think you should really check this place out. It's for the military. They love the Lord. And so he brought me one time and I just fell in love with it. I felt like I was home.
Do you remember when you showed up to Anchor the first time? I
know it was in that year, 2013, I had showed up. It was a couple months after I had just started college.
Did you attend once and then it took a minute before you came back, or did you kind of just stuck it out after you showed up?
I stuck it out afterwards because I had really enjoyed attending there. Because I remember he took me to one of your guys' studies that you had on a Friday night.
Okay.
And
what were we in? Do you remember?
I don't remember, no. Oh. And I really enjoyed it. I just felt like I was at peace.
That's good.
People were really kind and loving, and I really enjoyed it. And so,
for you guys who don't know, that's when The Anchor was still stuck in that 70s show when we had carpet and it looked like it got trapped in the 1970s. And at that time, a lot of Marines active duty were coming in, but they would walk in and be like, "Is this an old folks home?" And they'd walk out. So
it's definitely unique.
Yes, it was. Yes.
So I went there till May 2016, and then
so we're back at the school now.
Yeah. So a year prior to that, we'll go back to when I started. Joseph and I, we started becoming friends, and I started attending The Anchor and growing in that. And then Joseph and I, we dated for a short time. We were friends, and then briefly dated, and then we ended up marrying in June of 2015.
Okay.
And then so I still had this goal that I wanted to go pre-med.
Oh, so you guys hit your 10-year mark.
Yes, we did. 10 years.
Awesome.
And I had this goal of really wanting to go to med school. But every time I got accepted, the Lord would shut it down. Something would happen. But I was so like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, Lord. And I remember I finally got accepted to the University of Laverne, their physician assistant program. And during that time, I found out that I was pregnant. Our beautiful son, Isaiah. And the day that I was supposed to give birth was the day I was supposed to start classes.
Oh, wow.
And so I remember sitting in one of the, orientation meetings that we had a couple of months before we were supposed to start. And I'm there sitting there trying to hide my pregnancy because I didn't want to tell people.
Why?
I felt like they were going to kick me out of the program. I was scared. And I remember I was crying in the car because I was like, Lord, because I knew the Lord was telling me, don't do this. And I was still fighting it. And I'm like, Lord, I don't want them to find out. I was like, maybe I could just obviously, have Isaiah and then just go to class and I can do this as a new mom. But all these fears are in my head. And I remember I went into that meeting and I was like, I can't do this. And I was like, my focus is my son, is Isaiah. And so I remember I talked to the preceptor and I said, I can't, I'm sorry. I said, I'm pregnant. And she's like, and I remember her telling me.
What's a preceptor?
Your preceptor. So the one that you'll train under while you're going through the program.
Okay.
And so I remember her telling me, and she was so loving about it. And she was like, it's okay. She's like, you can still go through the program while you're pregnant. We'll give you time to do stuff. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know what this is like as a new mom. I said, and so she's like, I understand. She's like, but no, if you ever want to come back, your seat will be here. And so I was like, okay. So when I made that decision, I finally knew that this was the Lord saying no. And so shortly after that, I ended up, having Isaiah. And then during that time, I worked as a recovery care coordinator on Wounded Warriors Battalion. So I started there in September of 2016. And then I did that for several years.
Okay.
So
nice. So it seems like the Lord's kept you in a lot of those areas. So it sounds like at a very young age, you understood who Christ was and you followed him. It's just you ended up kind of like how a lot of people do in the military. They kind of go wayward because of all the stuff that just gets thrown their way and the whole thing. Okay. So, I appreciate you sharing. Yeah. That's amazing. And the thing is it's so interesting to see how, the paths that we cross. So like how at the time you're joining, I'm in, Joseph, I think joined in 2009, if I'm correct. And then, you're going over here, you're going over there. The whole Hawaii thing. We knew some of the people from 2-3, like Doc Vasquez, and how we kind of knew similar people. And then just ending up at the same college, ending up in the same, as the military put it, the same AO, the area of operation. And then Joseph at the time, I think was, if I remember correctly, was living with me at the beginning, started college, and then he started living with a guy named Isaac, who was a former Marine too, MP, dog handler. Joseph was an MP. And he was living in Santee. Was Joseph already in Santee when you first met him?
Yes, you were. You were living like right across the street from the school.
Yeah. And you were living like
in El Cajon, so it wasn't that far from the school itself.
Okay. And then I'm trying to remember the first day I met you. Man, I can't remember. Was that 2013 or 14 I met you?
I think it was.
I know I met you here, but I met you prior, right?
No, because
or was it here?
I think it was it was here because I remember when I came the first time and Joseph's like, oh yeah, this is Levi. And I had met you and
you're like, that's crazy.
and I met several others, but I didn't realize that you had attended San Diego Christian College.
Sorry, being a goof over here. Joseph's over here like, fix your beard. It's in the mic. So,
but yeah, when I realized that you had attended there, I was like, oh, but and ended up, having a class with you at night.
Which class were we in?
Were we in theology?
Was it Witten? Maybe.
I don't know.
Took a lot of classes.
I remember it was me, you, Joseph, Philip.
Yep, Philip.
And Holly at the time.
We'd all talk through Messenger.
Yes.
Be in class. Yeah, that was fun. That was always fun.
It was. Yeah. So yeah, but like you're saying, the Lord definitely had his hand in everything.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so now you married Joseph. You guys married 10 years. Your son Isaiah is 7.
Yes.
Okay. You are now here at the Anchor. and you're part of the interns,
Yes.
which we call the Joshuas and the Deborahs. So Deborah's for the ladies, and it's based off of Deborah from the Book of Judges. For you guys who don't know, that she was the only female willing to stand up to actually fight the war when the males wouldn't. And then Joshua's based on those who helped, the guy who helped Moses in fight the battles and raise his hands. So as of right now, how long have you been in the internship?
Since August.
August. Okay. So it's only been about, it's not even 2 months yet. It will be 2 months on the
Yes.
18th. Okay. So let me ask you this.
Yes.
How do you like it?
I really enjoy it. I think it's such a blessing. It's interesting because I had been praying about this for about several months. I would see Joseph attending the Joshuas and just how much he was growing in his walk with the Lord and him having that fellowship with, that community with others. And I was like, Lord, I wonder if there's something out there that's kind of like that for the females, where we can have that sense of community, that sense of growing with the Lord and be under that discipleship. And I remember the Lord had put it on my heart, to want to do other things within the ministry, but I just didn't know where do we go with this. So I was praying, and then you had mentioned that you were going to start the Deborah group, and I said, "Wow, what a answering to prayers!" And it's been great. You get to serve amongst other women who have a desire to want to serve the Lord. You get to see everybody's beautiful gifts, how they come together, and how the Lord's using it, and you get to grow deeper into the Word. And awesome because we get to have that discipleship, not with the other women, but with also you leading us as a pastor. And I thought that was a very unique opportunity to have because I really didn't see that anywhere else. And so it's been really great. I've been understanding gifts I thought I never have.
It's good.
Gaining a better knowledge of the Word and just growing deeper in my walk with Christ.
Awesome. So now that you're doing this, let me ask you this question. So there's two questions to this. The first question is, as you're doing the internship and being one of the Deborahs, what do you like the most about it? So if you had to pick the one thing that you're like, this is what I love the most, what is it?
I think it's being able to grow deeper in the Word and being able to understand that and teach others. I think that's such a unique gift to have because the one thing that I like about it is that, we all meet and, we read so many chapters and we dive into it. And I think, this is great. I'm getting this wisdom and this understanding. And then I'm thinking, this is something that could be used not only to teach others, but, even in my own household, and helping to raise Isaiah and having his walk with the Lord as well. And I see how the Lord's using that. And I thought, that's such a great thing. So I think that's one of the great things amongst a lot of other great things. But yeah.
What do you find is the hardest part?
I think the hardest part is balancing your personal life with doing this program because it's hard because you have kids and I'm a mom and I'm working and I have all these different roles and it's trying to find that balance to be able to do it.
Plus your husband is a board member.
Yes, he is.
He does worship, and he's helping in a major capacity.
He is.
Okay.
He is. And all those roles, but I think also too when I step back and I look at it, I think how the Lord's using our family for the ministry itself. And so the Lord, told me during this time, make sure your focus is on me. Don't get distracted by other things. Your focus is on me. And I think that's so beautiful how the Lord's integrating our whole family into that.
Okay. Being a mom and being that your husband is in ministry full time, and then now you're doing this, how do you feel it's impacted your family? That you talk about balance, but how do you feel it impacted your family and having your son watch what you guys do?
He, it's interesting because, Isaiah doesn't sit directly with us while we're in the meetings and stuff. He'll be off in the room by himself, on his iPad watching something or whatnot, but he hears everything. He hears when you're teaching or when we're going through the Word, and it sticks with him because afterwards he'll be like, "Hey, Mom, you guys were talking about this in Genesis," and I think it's so great because he's listening to that, and then that's the door that opens for me to be like, "Okay, let's sit down and go through the Word together and go through this," and then he's growing in that, and then he sees it too. when he comes to the Anchor. He'll see like how we serve and, what we do for the service members, especially on Friday night during the Bible study. And he gets to be a part of that and integrate with it. So that sets a foundation for when he grows older. But as far as us going into it, I will say one thing: as we went into this together as a family, we definitely been attacked.
Okay.
The attacks have been real. And I understand that because, the enemy's upset,
right.
That, we're growing closer in our walks and he doesn't like that. And so it's definitely been those times when we're in trials to be like, okay, take a step back and be like, I know that the enemy's mad, but we're doing this for the Lord and the Lord's going to protect us and he's already gone before us. And so
if you came across another mom, because I know, for example, I know there's someone out there who had already mentioned to me and she's a mom. And they're married. She got her husband, and she was like, my husband and I really want to do this, and they have a little girl. They had mentioned it. What encouragement or what advice would you give another couple with a child, a small child coming into this? What would be your advice to them?
I would say, be obedient. Be obedient if that the Lord is what the Lord's called you to do. The Lord's going to provide a way for you to do it. He's going to bless that willingness to want to serve. And, like I was saying, going back to when I wanted to do this and knowing I had Isaiah, I said, you know what, Lord, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to trust in you because if this is from you, you're going to open up a door. You're going to open up a path for me to be able to do this. And he did. And I think also, too, when you have young children, start them early in the ministry. Integrate them any way that you can. I remember when Isaiah was younger, we would always read him the Bible. I mean, we read him the Bible, we would sing songs together of the Lord, and it set that foundation. And also, too, when he was coming to the Anchor as he was younger into the ministry. And so now it's normal for him to be here. And he's just like, when are we, Mom, are we going to go Tuesday? Do you have your meeting with the Deborahs? Mom, are we going to go on Friday? Is it Friday yet for the Bible study? Mom, and it's just that joy that the Lord's given him because he's grown up. And I would just tell you, be encouraged in the Lord. Just, have faith. And, the Lord's in it. He's going to bless it. He's going to open up a path. And, just little by little, but it's that taking that first step of obedience, I think, just to encourage you in that.
Okay. So let me ask you this: what do you do at the Anchor? So at this point, and obviously you're doing the internship, but at this point, is there a specific position you have at the Anchor, or is there a specific thing that you do at the Anchor that's like the gift or the thing that's like, this is what I do at the Anchor when I show up, or my job or anything like that?
For what I do, it's really wherever you need help. But the main focus, I think, is getting the Anchor prepared for Friday. So I do come in here on Thursdays to help clean and prepare it with Joseph. And any other areas that need help with, like on Fridays, I help with the children's ministry there with Jamie. And just anywhere that needs help and I can plug in with that. That's what I do. I kind of float around.
Okay.
So.
And then, so I have 3 more questions before we're done. So we talked about the internship, and that's got its own thing. And for anyone who's interested in that, reach out to us. The thing about this internship, you have to be here. We had a young lady, she's in Virginia. She wanted to do it by Zoom, and I was like, no, you have to be in person. This is the only way it works. So this is more about a question about ministry. These next questions, it's actually 2. So obviously it's part of the ministry, and you're talking about taking care of the kids. You're talking about preparing for Friday and getting the place ready. So what do you like most about the ministry aspect?
What I like most is being able to serve. That's something I've always had a passion, is wanting to serve others. Obviously, just being in the service and then doing this, but I really have a desire to want to serve people in any capacity that I can. And I just really enjoy knowing that you can do different roles while you're in here, and you get to see the gifts and how they're growing and how the Lord's using you. Because I never thought I would help with the kids. I remember, when I was attending church, the first church I attended several years back, I would see the kids ministry there, and I thought, wow, that's a cool opportunity to be able to serve kids, but I don't have that gift, to do it. And I was just serving at the time of getting the church prepared for service. And so I thought, and I didn't see the blessing in my gifts. When you do something, you always look at everybody else's gifts and you're like, how come they have this cool gift of doing worship or teaching and I'm over here just cleaning? But now looking at it,
Were you telling that to Joseph?
no.
Why do you sing and I don't?
I always joke with him I could be a part of his band, but I'll be the backup singer.
Got to get you a tambourine
Backup
with
singer.
tambourine gloves.
But now that I look at it, I say, you know what? One gift is not more important than the other. The blessing is that the Lord's using me and having that joy in serving him in anywhere I can. And so, just serving.
Okay. What's the hardest part about doing ministry?
The hardest part, I think, like I was going back to, I was saying originally, is having that balance.
The balance.
The balance of, your personal and then with the ministry itself.
Okay.
So
with the balance,
mm-hmm.
what does that look like for you? I guess everyone's got it different, but for you as a mom,
mm-hmm.
you got a husband, you got a child, your son's in kindergarten, first grade?
He's in second grade.
I should know this. He's like my nephew. I'm a horrible person. All right. So your son's in the second grade.
It's okay.
All right. Your son's in second grade. And so what does it look like for you to balance this all out?
Well, I think with balancing it out is just obviously the ministry, Isaiah comes first. He's my first ministry. And then the Lord made it very clear that obviously Isaiah comes first as your first ministry, being a wife and a mom, and then everything else follows suit. So I think with having that balance, it's like, it's finding time for my family, but also finding time to do the ministry, but integrating the family into that as well. So I guess, an example of that would be, Isaiah has his school that he goes to. And then, on Tuesdays, whenever we have our meeting or whatnot, it's, bringing him with us. And then, Friday integrating whenever he can help out here. And, if you ever need us and we're on call, whatever, just, having him integrate with that. But it's integrating where we can within the ministry and finding that balance of being able to do work and, be a mom and then also doing this. But the Lord's been so merciful and so gracious because he has allowed me to have time to have the ministry integrate with my life.
That's
and
awesome.
I was going back and just saying, when you have that, when you surrender to the Lord and you're obedient to his will, he will provide a plan and a way for you to do, what he wants you to do. So like you always say, where the Lord guides, the Lord provides.
Yes. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is today's episode. Thank you, Leanna, for being on. And you're the first interview we've ever had. So you have made a historical milestone in our podcast. It's been good. I think a lot of this will touch people and your story. There's others out there who maybe, feel like you do, where it's like, man, I gave everything to the military and it didn't go like I wanted, or just ministry and life and being a parent. But thank you again for coming on. Thank you for having me. Yes. And again, we will always continue questions with the other styles. You can always write them in. We'll answer to the best of our abilities. We got them. And just keep your eyes on what the Lord's doing. And like the intro always says, ready on the right, ready on the left. The question is, are you ready for what the Lord has? Are you ready for his return? So be in the Word and have a blessed week.
Ceasefire! Unload! Any help